Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another live. If you're new here, my name is Laken, and I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to answer any questions that you have about goals, planning, life, whatever's on your mind, whatever you're struggling with. If you have questions about my goal journey or your goal journey, I'm happy to talk about any of that. And then sometimes we just talk about other random things as well. But let's go ahead and kick it off with our first question that we always start with, which is, what are you drinking? So if you're here live with us, let us know in the chat, say hi, and let us know what you're drinking or eating or doing while you are enjoying this live. If you are part of the replay fam, thank you so much for watching the replay. I would love for you to comment down below with what you are drinking and or doing while you're watching the replay. I just have a cup of tea here, my Mrs. Cup. I've not been sleeping well, so I'm trying not to have coffee tonight, especially because or this afternoon, because I don't have any need to stay up tonight. We have a silent co-working for Patreon from 7 to 8, and then I'm gonna get ready and go to bed early. So just having some tea today, no coffee for me. Hello, Joanna. I'm not drinking enough water. I'm also not drinking enough water. I also have that handy, although I had a big ice cube from an ice bag from something, and so it won't close all the way. I'm also feeling very dehydrated lately, and literally this morning had the thought that I might need to put water back on my power sheets just because I haven't been prioritizing it. Normally when something like that happens, slight tangent from the drinking question, I would add it in the middle. It's August 17th. There is still so much of August left, 2 full weeks. If I had another line, which I guess I could just add it below, I would add it to my power sheets. But I used all my daily sections. So I don't know yet. We got Mountain Dew, butterbeer on ice. Ooh, that sounds delicious. Water, it's supposed to be 108. Wow, Tina, that is toasty. 108. Holy moly. All right. Looks like I've gotten at least everyone who has been able to comment so far what everyone is drinking. Let's get to our questions. The reminders that I always forget to say is, if your name is something other than, or the name you like to go by is something other than your YouTube or Facebook name, I would love for you to include your name in the question or comment. If you have something that you want to chat about that is not a question, it's not a specific question, or you don't know how to turn it into a question, you can just put topic and then put whatever the topic is, and we'll just chat about that topic. So let's get to it. What is on your mind? What do you have questions about? Oh my gosh, you're at a Harry Potter Airbnb, so you have to drink butter. Well, of course you have to drink butterbeer. Where is this Airbnb? That is so fun. I've seen ones at Universal where one of the themes is one of the room themes is Harry Potter. That's how it was. The Airbnb that we stayed at in Orlando for my bachelorette party, one of the rooms was Harry Potter themed, but the whole thing wasn't Harry Potter themed. Ooh, spiced tea, Susan, that sounds good. The tea I have is lemon, ginger, and honey flavored tea. I have no idea where I got this or where it came from. I think this is one of the teas that I bought. I bought from the drugstore when we were sick, and we're just trying to finish it up. It's probably a smidge too hot right now. Oh, actually, it's not so bad. Okay. I'm not going to even pretend to pronounce the name of that city, but it's in Georgia. 2 days at the Burrow and 2 days at Hagrid's Hut. Well, that is just the coolest thing in the whole wide world. Dang. That sounds amazing. I'm very, very jealous of your current Harry Potter Airbnb. Thanks for joining us live from your Airbnb on your vacation. All right. What other questions do you have? Either questions for me. There was a bonus video yesterday that went live. That is the Cultivate What Matters daily planner. So if you have questions about that, we can talk about that. Questions about your goals, about my goals. My goals video also went up on Monday, which is way later than it normally goes up. Normally it goes up the first Monday of the month, not the third, but it's fine. Clara, you were saying you had a load of book recommendations in last week's live. Are there any you can share that you're planning to read? Always looking for series recommendations. So if you go back and watch that live, I think it was either the week before I left for my honeymoon or the week before that. It couldn't have been the one the day before, because I'm pretty sure I'd already downloaded things at that point. So I'm pulling up the sticky note now. I'm going to read to you the ones that I wrote down. Well, you know what? if I read them, I feel like you're going to be like, if I say them out loud, you're going to be like, you're talking way too fast. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them in a comment after this live goes up. Like I'll comment on my own video with all of the ones that I put on the sticky note of like, when I say sticky note, I'm talking like a digital sticky note that I don't know if your computer has a sticky note app, but I use mine all the time. So I will put that up. The one that I did read over my honeymoon was, Ember in the Ashes, which was great. Highly recommend. I ended up going with that one just because of based on like the reviews and the topic and the length of the books, compared to like the price of buying them. Because I think I mentioned this either in that video or in another video that I'm trying to be better about like being okay with spending money on fiction books. Because last year I didn't buy any books and I was getting all my fiction from the library. And so the fiction I was reading was based on what was available at the library. And that limited me. And then I would get bored or I would lose my fiction motivation. So now my sister and I, we got Kindle Unlimited. So I'm trying to balance between buying fiction and using the Kindle Unlimited free books. So yeah, but I will still add them in the comment. Oh, Amanda, thank you for linking it. So in the live chat, Amanda linked the live that had all the recommendations and it had a ton. So it might be worth it to you to go look at those because there were also a lot of recommendations in that live of books of series that I had already read. So I didn't put them on my list, or I went and read the summary and it didn't sound like something I was interested in. The list I have, which is about, I would say it's probably 10 to 15. Those are the ones that based on my preferences and things I haven't read that I want to read. So hopefully that helps. What is the name of the yellow Dazzle Dry polish? I actually happen to have my nail polish out so I can tell you that answer. It is called Frozen Lemonade. So if you have no idea, Dazzle Dry is the nail polish system that I use. I love, love, love it. Love it. Highly recommend. If you paint your nails at home, highly recommend Dazzle Dry. This is also Dazzle Dry. This is one of my favorite ones. Starstruck. Oh my gosh, one of my favorites. But Frozen Lemonade is the yellow one. If you've never purchased from Dazzle Dry, I do have a referral link. It's like everybody gets one, a referral. It's one of those companies has a referral program where if you use my link, you get a discount and I get credit back to the shop. The only negative is I almost always tell people not to pay full price because they have sales all the time. And the negative to the credits that you get from referrals, which I obviously immensely appreciate when you use my link and I get credit, you can never use it with the discounts. Like you can't use them at the same time. So anyway, just fun facts. Have you read any of the Colleen Hoover books? Yes, I have also gone down that rabbit hole. I think I made the mistake of reading like the quote unquote best ones first, or at least ultimately, in my opinion, what the best ones were that way. And then so everything else after that has not totally lived up to that hype. I did mention this in, so I also talk about what I read in the past month in my email newsletter that goes out on the first Monday of every month. And in this last one, I did talk about how I kind of went back down the rabbit hole and read a few more, especially because hers do frequently end up on Kindle Unlimited. And I did finally find one, Hopeless, that I really enjoyed. But up until that point, nothing had ever come close to the first two that I read, which were It Ends With Us and Verity. Those were my favorite two for like ever. Like nothing was ever going to beat those until I read Hopeless. I've probably read 7 or 8 at this point. But most of them, again, not living up to that initial hype. But it's still like, I don't hate it, but they don't end up being my favorite fictions, all the other ones. I know there are still so many to go. The thing is, my sister buys them all. My sister refuses to read digitally, except for Kindle Unlimited. And so she likes to buy them all in person. And so she has a bunch that I still want to read. And I'm just going to get the physical ones from her next time I'm home. I was going to do it last time I was there and we both forgot. Slightly distracted with her graduating college. But River, you always come in with these awesome questions. What does living my best life mean to you? That is a fantastic question that I would also encourage everyone to kind of think about. And I do think that everything we've all been through in the last 2 years has really gotten me to think even more so about what this means to me. To answer it on the fly, my initial answer or gut reaction question is it means that I am happy most of the time. I completely understand there is no scenario in life that I'm going to be happy 100% of the time. Like that just that's not life. And you definitely have to have the downs to appreciate the ups. The downs is where you learn. The downs is where you grow. Like that, I'm not expecting that ever to go away. But I do think living my best life means that I am happy at least the majority of the time. Or to clarify even further, I'm happy in some aspect of my life. Like when I think about it, right, my life has a bunch of different components to it. And the scenario that all of those components are going perfect and awesome all at the same time is probably hardly ever. But are things going awesome, great, like awesome? And I just said awesome twice. You know what I mean? In one of those areas at any given time. To me, that feels like I'm living my best life. Now, again, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be scenarios that all of those areas I'm struggling with. Like that definitely happens. But I also think that it's looking for the positive, I guess. Also, my hair today is a disaster. I'm so sorry. Continuing this conversation, happy or content most of the time. Is there a difference between those words? To me, no. I think those things kind of in this context of the conversation, I think they mean the same to me. Like I think there's a difference there's a level up from that, right? There's like amazing, super perfect, not even perfect. I don't want to use that word. Like superstar, super awesome. And then there's like happy and content, right? Like if we're saying like on a scale of 1 to 10, which I don't always like giving those things kinds of ratings, but like on a scale of 1 to 10, right? I would say like happy content for me is the same as like an 8. Like that's what I'm going for. I feel like there's always room for improvement. Now, are there peaks? Are there like little moments, right? Like our wedding day, our relationship, 10 out of 10. It's perfect. It's great. Everything's awesome. But like that is not always going to be the norm. And so life is the this is going to like real deep for a Wednesday afternoon. Life to me is the encompassment. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for there, of all of those areas and all of those ratings. And like, as long as like, as a whole, I'm hitting like an 8, like I'm feeling good. So yeah, that was a lot. Jessica, I'm anticipating the season by season will sell out day of on Tuesday. Do you think it will be restocked and available Thanksgiving weekend? So I am also anticipating a sellout. I don't know what their stock is. I have zero idea when that is going to be the scenario. I am also anticipating that though, given that that's what happened with the 90-day. Now the 90-day one sold out day 1 in June, and they are restocking it later this month. Well, that's what they said, and it's already, I don't know. We'll see. So it was about a 2-month turnaround. So my guess, I don't know the answer for sure 100% for you, but my guess is that if it does sell out on day 1 next Tuesday, it will be back in stock by November. Whether that's Thanksgiving weekend, I don't know, but like I think it will for sure be in stock by the new year. Honestly, I think that's why they're launching it as early as they are. That way they can have 2 releases of it before the new year. I'm still frustrated it doesn't start until 2023. If you watch my review video, I was like, I'd like to start using this product tomorrow, which I might. I might just find whatever month of 2023 matches up with August and we start using it. But we'll see. Clara, are you enjoying having a bit of breathing space now that the wedding and honeymoon are done? Yes, absolutely. It feels a little bit weird. Like, what am I supposed to do with this extra time? And now, don't get me wrong. If you have been following along, if you watched, there has not been a Plan With Me up yet that shows this. But I'm going to dance 3 days a week this season, which is a lot. Like, that's a lot to go out to Queens 3 times a week. But, again, it's my last season, my last one in New York. Like, I am it is what it is. So that has taken up a lot of my time. Also missing dance for the honeymoon and having to learn and catch up has taken up a lot of my time recently. So I haven't quite felt that breathing room yet. Also, I feel like I've been trying to just get my groove back. So haven't quite felt it yet, but I'm definitely enjoying not having but see, I say that like I was about to say not having something like massive outstanding that I'm planning for, but that is not true, which I'm going to jump ahead, Shani. I'll come back to your question. Joanna and Amber both asked the same question. Now that you've been on your honeymoon, what's on your countdown board? So the first two things on my countdown board didn't change from what they were. Actually, three of the four stayed the same. I just added one more in there because I couldn't come up with anything else. So I still have football. Actually, I think this is either yesterday or Monday. It needs to be updated. So it's the day one of, why can't I point on that? Texas college football. Day one, that's first Saturday. The dance show. I had it in Christmas because I literally couldn't think of anything else. And then our move to Chicago, which this is not 100% an official date. That's the date I think we're going to move. I mean, it's the Saturday before our lease is up. So I think that's the day we'll move, but it's not 100%. But that is the countdown board now. So weird. Okay. I don't know how I feel about Christmas. And then after that, I don't know what I'm going to add. After football season starts, maybe I'll add basketball season. That schedule hasn't come out yet, though, so I actually have no idea. Okay. Cheney, I know you're only a few weeks back into the swing of things, but how are you feeling about HB90 in your business project management? So if you watched, I posted a video, a vlog that went live while I was gone. That's all the things I do to prepare for the new month is like the concept of the vlog. And in that video, I talk about how I'm using a twist on the HB90 system for my business project management. I'm still struggling a little bit with it. There's a lot that I feel like it's working, it's not working, but let me add in the big caveat here. That I think is a me and a coming back from my honeymoon and not having all the energy in the world problem, not so much a system problem, if that makes sense. So yeah, still struggling a bit, but I think it's a me thing. Yeah, it definitely feels real. Like less than 200 days feels super bizarre to me. Am I excited for Goal Planner launch season? Yes and no. I feel like I always get really excited, but then I also get really nervous. Like, what if they change something massive that I absolutely love? Or like, I don't know. I just, yes and no. So I can't believe we're almost here. River, what's your favorite things about coaching? So I think there's two big ones. I feel like I've said these in other places, but like to combine them and say them in one place. So the first one is how unique everybody's goals are. I used to have this but this was before even the Patreon community was started. I used to feel like I have this blind sugarcoat, like glass over my eyes that everybody had the same goals, that we were all going after the same things in life. And both Patreon and then even more so digging in with people one-on-one and the things that people want to prioritize with one-on-one coaching is so different. Everybody's goals are so different. Everybody's priorities are different. And it blows my mind, but then it's also one of my favorite things because I just know that every journey is going to be very different. And that kind of uniqueness, like I am a person who does enjoy a lot of consistency and routine, obviously, but that aspect of it, like I really, really enjoy. The other thing that I really like, one of my favorite things is whenever the light bulb moment goes off, and it is different for every single person, but there is a week at some point where there is a light bulb that they are like, wow, I never thought to do it that way. Or I never thought about that. Or I never had that, like that mindset shift has made all the difference. Like whatever it is, they all have a different light bulb moment. And it makes a world of a difference. And it just always, that gets me like really excited to see them then implement it. So that's a fun question. If one-on-one coaching is something you've been thinking about, shoot me a DM. Let's see if it would be a good fit for you as we kind of finish out the year strong. We still have a lot of 2022, y'all. I know we're all starting to think about next year. You're not alone. It's only August, but like it's fall. And then next thing you know, it's the holidays. And the next thing you know, it's New Year's. And like Duncan started their pumpkin stuff today. Like it's fall in everybody's mind. And there's still so much time left in 2022 to accomplish so many things. So don't give up on the year. That was like 4 things in one. Okay. Go back to my tea here. Because now it's like the perfect temperature. So I'm going to try to enjoy it a little bit at its perfect temperature before then it will be cold or cold-ish. Good questions so far today. What else is on your mind? Is there anything, speaking of, I'm going to put a question back on you. Speaking of goal planner launch season, whether you're here live or you're watching the replay, is there something that I can do that would help you? I feel like I usually prioritize just the two goal planners that I think are the most valuable, which are the Cultivate Matters Power Sheets and the Moxie Life. There are countless other options that I am happy to try and figure out how to incorporate and talk about more if that would be helpful for you. Or are there other types of videos that would be helpful in figuring out how to get yourself set up for the new year? I would love to hear from you. Either, again, in the live, if you're here live, or in the comments. Or if you're here live and you're like, I don't know the answer to that yet, take a sec and think about it and come back and comment later. Or send me a DM. Do you have a bucket list of Christmas in New York plans this year? Excited for Vlogmas? Not really. I feel like I've done anything that is Christmas in New York that I love. I've done in a Vlogmas before. So probably not. This is also one of those things that I feel like I could try to squeeze all this in. It's kind of like the New York City bucket list in general. I could try to squeeze these things in, but like they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. And New York's not going anywhere. What's going somewhere is me. And so if it's like going to a bar I've been 100 times with my friends, or like going to some special Christmas thing, I'm going to pick hanging out with my friends, because that is the important piece of it for me than the New York City Christmas things, if that makes sense. I will be doing Vlogmas though, and I will be doing December daily. Yes, absolutely. For the other options, could you bring on guests who use those systems? I could. I do feel like that might be difficult. Trying to figure out the timing of that, when the videos are going to go live and all those things. Let me ponder it. Yeah. Plus, I don't actually know who uses, besides the Power Sheets and the Moxie Life, I'm not sure about the other ones. Susan, 100 degrees here, not fall. Yeah, I know a lot of people are like, it's fall. And I'm like, it's actually cooling down here in New York, thank goodness. But like, not ready for fall. Somebody asked me that. Was that last week? Somebody asked me that? Or was that like in person? Somebody asked me that. And for me, it's like when football season starts. That was last week, I think. Silicon Sonder. Lori, I did review this years ago. They sent me one and I reviewed it. But I can go back and try that again and like because I think also when I reviewed these types of goal products, like I did a whole video that was like other goal planners, and like the full focus was in there. It was like a video with 4 or 5 other goal planner options. But this was like probably 2.5 years ago, at least. I had a very different mindset when it came to goals for those things. I have a lot more knowledge and experience and thoughts on goals and how to go about achieving goals than I did when I first reviewed a lot of these products, likely. So I'm not opposed to going back and revisiting those. So I'm open to this one. And going back to Cheney's comment, if you are someone who uses Silk and Sonder regularly, send me a DM, because then maybe I'll bring you on and we can talk about that a little bit more. Heather, a video about journaling prompts or a set of questions to start brainstorming what is important to you for goal creation or a planning system. Okay. I think those two things, first off, are very different in my mind. Your goals and your goal creation and your planning system, obviously they overlapped, because I think you definitely need a planning system that supports your goals. But I think your planning system is less defined about what you're figuring out. Your planning system is less about what your goals are and more about what your life is like. That is how I think you figure out your planning system. And Cindy did a really great video on this about figuring out what planner works for you that I continue to reference and like recommend over and over again. that I think it doesn't matter really what your goals are, to figure out what your planning system is that works for you. Now, in terms of what's important to you for goal creation, I think it's figuring out which system really works best for you and then following that system. I think I've said this before, but all of the systems, all of them have their pros and cons, in my opinion, in terms of what works about them, what doesn't work about them. It's figuring out which system is the best for you and your lives and your goals, and then jumping into it, not feeling like, well, let me tweak, let me overlap these two, or let me, I do think you can tweak it if that works for you, but I do think you got to go all into the system that you're using that works for you. Joanna, for me, something that would be helpful is to think about how to think about 2023 goals before diving into the prep work. Maybe a few weeks before Cultivate Your Live, mindset stuff, brainstorming, etc. For me, doing the prep work all in one go is way too much, but I know others think about it differently. Yeah, I do think it depends on the person, on whether you feel like all of the prep work at one time is positive or negative. But I will think about that a little bit more, because I do agree with you in your last comment here that it could work for multiple systems. I think regardless of which prep work you're doing or how much prep work you're doing, thinking about things a little bit in advance. And now, I've said this before a number of times, you can start a brainstorming page today. I already have a brainstorming, just one page on my iPad in GoodNotes of ideas for 2023. It already exists. You can start brainstorming now. You don't have to wait until it's time to start working on your goals. And know that what you put on your brainstorming page does not have to necessarily make it into your goals. Could you do a weekly, daily plan with me and different planners throughout launch month as a comparison? Clara, I likely would not do something like this. And here's why. For me, the plan with me videos, it's about showing you my system and what works for me. And I cannot fathom doing a weekly or daily plan with me in a system that I wouldn't think works for me. I guess so. It's yes and no. If it is in a planner that I could use, I could see myself using, maybe I would do this. But the summary of this that I was going to come to at the end is that there are so many planner channels nowadays that do things like this. There are so many people that will do plan with me daily and weekly in different planners and show you how they work. And I think that there's options for you to get this kind of content. I just don't know that it's the best for me. That's not necessarily what I just don't think it's beneficial for you to see me use a system that I would never actually use. I don't think that's helpful for anybody. Lynn, mind mapping. Do you mind elaborating? You mean a video on mind mapping? This might also be something that there might be somebody else who's a much, much better equipped or already has a video on this kind of topic, because I just kind of do it. I don't know if there's really a system. Lori, how to do a brain dump. I open a notebook and can't think of a thing. So that's such funny. I don't feel like this necessarily needs its own video too, but I'm going to comment on it here because I literally just did this yesterday. I was feeling, if you saw my Instagram stories, I was feeling a little bit, I was feeling a lot of things yesterday. I was feeling a little overwhelmed. I was feeling a lot of things yesterday. And I think one of those things was the amount of things that I felt like I need to do to get back on track. So I literally just did a brain dump. For me, the way I start is with categories. So the categories I made are home, honeymoon recap type stuff, personal, goals, and work. Those are the 5 categories. And then I just started making things underneath them. And once you start writing, it comes up with more ideas. The other, for me, this is a personal thing for me, a key to a brain dump is I'm going to rewrite it multiple times, because it's going to come out of my head in a different order than I want it to ultimately be on my final list. So when I'm brain dumping, the first round is, get everything I can get out of my head. It looks like a disaster. I usually end up doing 2 more. The next round is usually okay, let me reorganize this in the way that it makes sense to me. And then I also usually come up with more stuff in that round. So then round 3 is like the final rewrite. Now it looks like a list that I'm actually going to start tackling, which is what I have next to me. There's some things on there that I'm not totally comfortable sharing, so I don't want to post it up, but it's it literally like it takes up one full page in like a regular size notebook, and that's like my current brain dump. So I hope that was helpful a little bit. Mind mapping, how to use to develop goals. So I did a video on mind mapping years ago about, not years, actually it was years, because it was summer of 2020, because I can visualize the fact that I was at my parents' house when I filmed that. That I'll relink and maybe check that out for now. I'll think about what I could add or change. I'm not quite sure if there's anything else that I have learned or do differently from that video. Lots of great suggestions. I appreciate y'all. Love this. What is one of your favorite dates you two have been on? I'm trying to think. Okay, so there's a place in New York, which I just recommended to my parents. My parents, when they were here, is this place in New York that's the Spyscape. It's like a spy museum / experience. We very much like to be doing something, like an activity of some kind. I mean, we've seen a lot of shows, but Spyscape, it was like super fun because it was a museum, but it was also like we did activities. Like there was one thing where they had like all the laser beams across, and you had to like crawl over and under them like you were a spy. It was very cool. It was fun. Oh my gosh, Joanna, I feel like you have the expertise to design your own prep work now. That, I mean, first off, is probably one of the biggest compliments I could ever get. I don't know that I ever foresee that being a scenario that I would want to or feel qualified to do so. I feel like I have a lot of insight on how to help you get through once you know what your goals are. I've got tools and I've got knowledge on getting you through that to the finish line, or at least getting started. But the prep work part of it, I don't know. Ooh, Julie, great recommendation. Loaded Paper Co. has a brain dump trigger list for ideas. I do think, Lori, I know you're the one that originally asked the question. It's like you got to get started. And I do think categories help you get started. And then ask yourself, like, what's overwhelming me right now? Marissa, how do you decide if something is a new goal versus a component of a larger goal? I have things that I want to do, but I want to make sure I'm balancing the goals I've already prioritized. This is a great question and it's not a cookie cutter answer that I'm going to be able to give you. But my guess is what you mean is like you have your 2022 goals, right? And you think of an idea of something that you want to do. And the question is, does this fit into my current goals? Or is this like a new goal that I either need to add for the year or wait until the new year? And again, no right answer. There's not going to be a cookie cutter answer. The questions that you need to ask yourself are, what's the time commitment here? And do I have the time? If the answer is yes, well, then maybe you could either just make it a new goal or fit it into a current goal. If the answer is no, then even if it fits into a current goal, you likely are going to have to like get rid of something else in order to make space for that new idea. And if it's important to you, then do that. One of the things that I would recommend is going back, depending on what going back to the prep work of whatever goal setting system that you're using and kind of rereading some things, thinking about your rankings, your ratings, what's important to you with that new idea. Is that new idea something that really does fit well in with what your goals are, right? Like it could still be considered a new goal, but if it fits well within what's important to you for this current period, and that's going to be my next comment, then then do it. Then prioritize it and go for it. The last thing I'll say is all of our goals that we set are for a short period of time. Whether you're setting that goal for a month, a quarter, or a year, you're setting it, or you're setting it until you achieve it, right? Until it's over, whatever that thing is. It's temporary. So when you have a new idea, put it on, you don't need to start it tomorrow for sure. But put it on pause for like at least till the end of the month. And then start to think, okay, does this fit into my other goals? And that is the beauty of a goal refresh regularly, is you get to change your mind because new ideas happen, things get reprioritized, life happens. Just because you set a goal doesn't mean that you can't just like give, you can't change your mind. I guess that's my point. Like, just because you set yearly goals, a year is a long time. A lot can change in a year. You're allowed to change your mind, if that helps. I feel like for most of us, you kind of know, is this a new goal that I actually is important to me and I just didn't know about it in December of 2021 when I set my yearly goals? Or am I getting distracted by something new and exciting? If so, let me just put that on my 2023 idea list and stay focused on what I've currently prioritized. Sorry, I kind of rambled there a bit, but hopefully something in that was helpful for you. Okay, Cheney. I feel like I've done a lot over the last 3 years in terms of goals, and a lot of the big personal goals are most likely going to be completed, which is amazing. Yay, and happy for you. Approaching the next goal setting season, I feel like a lot of my goals are maintenance things, and it feels weird not to have those large aspirational goals. What are some tips to make the maintenance goals seem just as important as the big ones? Oh, man. Great question, first off. And I know that you're not alone, especially, I was actually, Joanna, I don't know if you're still here in the chat, but her and I talked about this during some of her one-on-one sessions where she's very similar in the sense that like most of her 2022 goals were maintenance related type goals. So first off, the first thing I want to remind you of is there is no like better or best goals, right? A big goal doesn't make it a better goal than a maintenance goal. Life is going to be more likely about those maintenance ongoing things than it is going to be about those big things, right? Those big things are based on timing and like where you're at in your life. It made sense that you were achieving a lot of those, and now it's kind of a maintenance thing. That said, the way to make them, so I'm going to answer your question in a way I don't necessarily want to focus on the word important, because to me, they're both important. And that's more of a mindset thing. Like you recognizing that you maintaining all the work that you've done in the last 3 years is important as all the other work you've done in the last 3 years, right? Like that's important. So I'm going to answer it with the concept of how to make it just as exciting, right? Just as motivating, just as inspiring as those big goals likely were to you. Because the problem with maintenance goals is there's not a finish line that we're necessarily going to cross. And so you're kind of like, well, when do I feel good about this thing? So a couple of ideas. Number one is you can always change things up, right? Just because you're maintaining a thing doesn't mean that you have to do the same thing. So for example, like with your workout plans, right? This year was likely about, first off, making workout a habit. And I happen to know Cheney and I know a lot of her goals work together one-on-one. She's a Patreon member. Like I know a lot of her goals, so I can use very specific examples for her. Your workout goal. This year, at first, it was about doing it, right? It was like doing something on a regular basis. Then it became about increasing it in terms of time. Well, maybe in 2023, let's measure some weights. Let's measure the output numbers on your rides, right? Let's measure something else that makes it where you're still working on the maintenance, but it's still inspiring and encouraging and exciting for you. Routines, right? Maybe it is about, okay, I am going to make a goal to do my routines 85% of the month. Again, pulling a number out of my head. But instead of focusing on just building the routine, which is a lot of what you've done in the last 2 years, it's, okay, doing the routine regularly, even around life and things that happen around life. So those are some specific examples, but changing up the actions, changing up what you're measuring about the actions, And then like creating your own finish lines to some extent, right? So I'm trying to think of a specific example with a goal that you would have, but there are ways to create like a specific end state for you, even if it's not a quote unquote big goal, right? So I hope that was helpful. That's a great question. And I know that you are likely not alone, right? Like there is no, like there are other people that are feeling absolutely the same way as you. River, do you ever journal or reflect after your lives? I feel like I should. I feel like that would be really beneficial. I do go back and like rewatch them so that I can add any links that I said I would add, which last week I know I forgot. I forgot to click save. The YouTube backend sometimes, man. I like put all the links in and I forgot to actually like click the save button. So it didn't actually like save. And then somebody commented and was like, I need this link. And I was like, I put it in there, but didn't save it. So I do rewatch them for that purpose. But I'm usually just trying to like get the links and get it done. And I'm not really like reflecting on what we talked about. But I do think sometimes, especially this week, man, we talked about some things that I think would be really, this one I'm for sure gonna have to go back and like document some things based on all the requests for the year end stuff, but not on a personal level, mostly just on a business level, which is helpful, but I'm sure it would be helpful to do it on a personal level as well. My tea's kind of at that, like, okay, I'm starting to not be cold or to be warm anymore. All right. I think I'm all caught up with comments and questions. Oh, Amy, I'm in the same boat as Shani in that once my baby's born, life will be mostly basic routines caring for a baby. I won't have much margin for big goals. I think in the same, right, there are lots of reasons why you couldn't have big goals in a year. It could be that you don't have any right now based on where you're at in your life, or it could be that you don't have time for them. Either way, not having a big goal doesn't mean that you're failing at goals, right? I think also it's like, I like that you put big in quotes too, Amy, because like, what does big really mean, right? There are the goals, there's like the habit maintenance goals. There are, which can fall into two categories, right? It could be habit maintenance that you've already done that you want to continue doing, but you're not quite ready to like pull it, not label it as a goal yet. Then there's like habit maintenance that you want to start doing. Then there's big goals that you likely could check off in a year or like in that year, right? So for me, that was like wedding stuff, honeymoon. Like those were big goals for 2022, but like that's not something I'm going to carry over. And then there are big goals, big goals. There are milestone goals, maybe let's call them, that you're not going to hit in this year. You're going to carry them over into next year. Like you're going to make progress on them in this year, but you're not going to be done with them. So different ways to think about it. There's so many different like names and wordings. Like every goal setting system calls those things all different things. And I don't think one is better than the other. I don't think one is more important. I don't think one is like none of that. It is all just like, what do you need right now? Let's go back to that question that River asked at the very beginning. What does living your best life mean to you? I want your goals to help you get there. So what does it mean to you? How can your goals help you get there? And then let's set goals based on that, not based on anybody's arbitrary definition of big, maintenance, small, blah, blah, blah. I'm in the same boat as Shani too. I think it's partially because the monthly action items mean you can fill in so much of the page for doing one thing, whereas the boxes for the habits are so small. 100%. And Joanna, that might mean that next year, the power sheets may not be the best option for you. If all you're doing is working on habit kind of maintenance things, then it could be that a different system is better suited for you. Now, that said, the way that you could do it is make it cumulative, right? So you could have a daily habit to do something. You could have a weekly habit to do the culmination of that something. And then you could have a monthly habit to be the culmination of that and be able to shade all of those things in for the same habit. Excuse me. Tanya, how do I tell the difference between when I give myself grace and when I'm just making excuses not to do something? great question. I feel like this could probably be its own, a whole own video in and of itself. But a couple of ways that I explain this. The first one is the energy scale, right? We all fall on this energy scale every day, somewhere on the scale, where one end is what I call superhero version of me, where I have all the energy in the world and I can do all the things and I check all the things off. That happens maybe one day in life, maybe two. Then we have the other end of the scale, the spectrum. That is, I have zero energy. I am not motivated to do anything. I'm doing nothing today. This is like, I can't possibly function. Maybe I do the bare minimum depending on what you do in the rest of your life. Like, do you have to go to work? Do you have to be a parent? What do you have to do? Otherwise, like, it's the bare minimum. The truth is, most of the month, we're not, most days, we're not at the ends. We're just not. With most spectrums, I use a spectrum example, by the way, when I talk about a lot of things, we very rarely are at the very ends of the spectrum. Most of the time, we fall somewhere in the middle. And what we have to accept is being okay with being in the middle. And so the problem is that, let's say you're at I can't remember which end is which now because I'm flipped the screen. So let's say you're at 25% energy for the day. The problem, the struggle that we have is we claim, well, I'm low energy today, so I'm just going to give myself grace, and then you do nothing. And you push yourself to the very end of the spectrum. Whereas what we need to do is be like, okay, I'm at 25%. So I'm going to give myself grace not to do 100% or even like 50%, but I'm not going to make excuses for what I can do. So, and now there's not like I'm giving numbers here, but I'm not saying like, oh, I am at a 32% energy today, which means I can do 32% of my to-do list. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is like, really ask yourself, like, okay, really, where am I at in terms of energy? And then prioritize. Likely your to-do list is going to be longer than your energy level. God, that is a sentence. Your to-do list is going to be longer than your energy level. Period, full stop. What is important? What are you going to prioritize on your to-do list that fits within your energy level? Somewhere on a scale of 0 to 100. It's likely, really, more on the scale of like 20 to 80. Most days, we are somewhere in between that scale. And so figuring out where you fall that day and what you're going to prioritize so that you are actually doing the balance between grace and excuses, right? I feel like that could be its own video, and I feel like I probably didn't do that justice. I feel like I have to save space in my goals for things that happen outside of your control, like wedding planning. I cannot stop and have this massive smile on my face when I like read that. That starting the year, there isn't really a lot to set in stone. That's what quarterly goals are for. If you're not setting annual 2023 goals and you're just focusing on Q1, here for it. It was supposed to be like an okay, but also a chef's kiss. I did both and it was weird. Okay, moving on. Marissa, there's a goal that I have, but I'm a little embarrassed that I have to do. Any steps on getting started? I'll feel better once it's done, but I wish I didn't have to do it. First off, you're not alone. We all have goals like that. And what I want to say is like, you're not alone. Even if you're like, yeah, but nobody else has this one. First off, they might, but second off, it doesn't matter what it is. We all have those, like what we consider embarrassing. So to get started, you're going to have to make it smaller. Make it smaller, make it smaller, make it smaller. What is that really that first step that you've got to do to get that momentum going? And how can you make that first step as easy and simple for yourself as possible? I would maybe encourage you to go back and rewatch the video about momentum versus motivation with this goal that you're thinking of in mind. Maggie, we've been down a person at work for a year. That's a long time. And all the extra workload has fallen on me, which has led me to staying later than I should and skipping lunch. What is a good way to maintain healthy boundaries? Okay, wow, that's a long time. So I would first off say that your question is about maintaining healthy boundaries. And I feel like you've got to first establish healthy boundaries because it doesn't sound like you can't maintain them yet because they're not there. They may have been there before this happened, but now they're not there anymore. So step one is going to have to be implementing and creating those boundaries, and then you can focus on maintaining them. So when we're talking about creating them, it's first off, it's always going to be hard. but don't focus on all of it at once and focus on smaller steps, right? So pick which one of those things you want to tackle first. Is it taking a lunch break or is it staying late? Okay, great. That's the one you're going to start with. Then let's start with the smaller, right? An ideal scenario, and wherever Emily is with our HR advice that she always gives on our Patreon calls, however, whatever the lunch break you're supposed to have, but start smaller, right? Like color in 15 minutes on your calendar and be like, I'm taking a 15-minute lunch. No, that's not enough, but like we're starting small, right? And do that and then build your way up. Then work on starting later. By the way, you can do them in the other order. I'm just giving you the example of picking one and then working your way to what you want it to be. And then maintaining, going back to the maintaining part of it, is being firm in your no, not necessarily having to give an answer right away, like saying, can I get back to you? It's way easier to say no when you get back to somebody. And then knowing that maintaining boundaries doesn't necessarily always mean 100% of the time, right? A boundary could be like part of the time. You're doing it 90% of the time, right? There might still be days you got to stay late or skip lunch, but as long as it's whatever that percent that you're comfortable with, that is maintaining. It's not 100 or 0. So I feel like I'm speaking fast because I see I'm trying to get caught up on questions in our time frame here. Amy, the spectrum idea has helped with my goal of creating a housekeeping routine. Instead of requiring rigid adherence to a schedule, my routine is flexible. It helps me just know what to do next. The goal was a sustainable routine, and flexibility is more sustainable than a routine I have to stick to. And my house is cleaner, even though I'm doing less because I'm not burning myself out. I love all that so much. Yes, that the spectrum concept, and I have talked about it in various videos with examples, but it is helpful on a lot of things, right? Clean. Your house is likely not perfect, ready to like be taken pictures of for like Real Simple. Is that still a magazine? I feel like that was a magazine my stepmom was obsessed with and always had all over the place. Versus like a tornado went through here, right? It's likely not ever going to stay at one of those ends all the time. We got to get comfortable with the spectrum and know that it's okay, that it's going to be different all the time. Right? The spectrum thing works on a lot of goals. Joanna, great advice. Marissa, give yourself an enormous treat once you have. Facing your fears is the hardest thing ever. Don't ever let yourself think I don't deserve a reward because I should have done it before. Absolutely. In that video about momentum, I talk about bribing yourself. I am 100% team reward, especially for that initial first step, because it can be really hard. And so like, what is that initial first step that you can make even smaller? And then how can you reward yourself after you've done that? That first step is going to kickstart that momentum so much that you will be able to keep going. I promise. Also, I feel like 9 times out of 10 with all of these things, we make it harder in our head or make it a bigger deal than it needs to be. We always think that it's going to be harder. It's going to take longer. It's going to be more embarrassing. It's going to be whatever. I don't know about you, but I am always guilty of thinking that it's going to be more than it actually ends up being. And I just need to stinking do it. Lori, what is this spectrum? I just mean the concept that I was giving when we were talking about the balance, when Tanya asked about the balance between grace and excuses, is just the concept that everything is on a spectrum and we are rarely at the extremes, but yet our brains are always thinking about the extremes. We're always thinking that we are going to live either like I'm achieving all of my goals or I'm achieving none of my goals. I have all the energy. I have none of the energy. My house is perfectly clean. My house is a disaster, right? It is so, we don't live at the extremes. We just don't. We live in the middle. We live in the spectrum. And so not pushing ourselves to the extremes when we're not at those, because we hardly ever are, and being okay with wherever we're at in the middle. And then what it's the uniqueness of it is that we're all different, right? Like, sure, we'd all love for our homes to be perfectly and spotless, and most of us probably don't want our home to be a tornado, but our regular like level of sanity for our home cleanliness, we all are somewhere in the middle. We're all, some of you might be like, yeah, but I'm like 95%. Okay. You might be 95%. Some of you might be like, well, I'm like a 25%. It just, this one room has to be clean, right? But it's knowing where's your comfort level and then working towards that instead of working towards the extremes. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Maybe that needs its own video. But the thing is, I use it. It works so much better when I'm giving you a tangible example of how the extremes don't function and how we need to be thinking about the middle. Yeah, I don't know if it's called that. Lori, that's something that I made up. Like, that's something that I just started talking about. And it really started with the energy example. I've also given this example on food, right? Like, you might think in your head, I am not taking care of my body at all and I'm eating absolutely horribly. Likely you're not at that extreme, right? The extreme of like doing absolutely nothing for your body would be putting like no nutrients in it. And then the other extreme, we think we have to be at that other extreme to like take care of our bodies, which is like only eating chicken and vegetables. And like, that's not necessarily taking care of our bodies either. Likely you want to fall somewhere in the middle, probably a little closer to that end of the spectrum, but not the extremes. We're not hitting the extremes. That's the other example that I regularly talk about the spectrum in, is like, where are you at on the spectrum? You're likely not at either extreme. Where do you want to be? And then, here's like the summary of the kicker. And then we got to close it out. Getting to where you want to be on the spectrum, it's not a jump, right? So back to our food example, you think you're down here at like, I am eating absolutely horribly. Let's say you're at 25%. Let's say you decide 80% is your goal of like your balance between like super nutrient dense foods and like foods that taste amazing. We're not going to jump from 25 to 80 on Monday, August 1st and expect to sustain it forever and ever and ever. We're going to make a little tiny 1% improvements. How can we go from 25% to 26%? Oh, is it taking one less spoonful of sugar in my coffee? Awesome. How can we go from 26% to 27%? Is it a slightly smaller serving size of gravy on my mashed potatoes? Awesome. How can we go from 27 to 28, right? Like, I mean, I could keep going. But what are the little 1% improvements to get yourself to the 80? Okay, yeah, that needs some video. All right, let me wrap it up with my final question to you, which is, what is one thing that you're going to do this week to make progress on your goals? Guys, the one I said I was going to do last week, I didn't do. Still not done with it. It's fine. Let me know in the comments. If you're here live, let us know in the chat, what is the one step you're going to take on your goals this week? And if you're here watching the replay and you've made it this far, you're awesome. Comment down below. What's the one step you're going to take on your goals this week so we can hold you accountable to it? Yeah, Amy, I think that's what I need. I need like the concept of the spectrum and then examples for each one of the main goals, I guess if we call them that. Lori, I'm glad the recent videos have been helpful. Thank you for sharing. Go to a car dealership. That's exciting. Module 3 of your course. Do your worksheet for the next chapter of your book. Katie, so exciting. Work on your paperwork backlog. I get that. I feel that. Okay. First off, the pile of mail I have is so large from going out of town because there's another NYC voting, and every candidate is sending, why can't I find an example of one? So many, we've killed so many trees with these candidate flyers. I'm so over it. Like, I will do my research and vote. Don't clog up my mailbox. Susan, going to the day retreat Saturday and Sunday. I'm working on a quilt. That's so exciting. Start your baby registry, Amy. Yay. Get a reader pass for a research library, Joanna. I'm so excited about you and your book. Okay, y'all. Work on completing a walking 5K. That is awesome. Thank you all for sharing. As always, my reminder that it doesn't have to be a big step to make progress on your goals. And I hope that you are super proud of the progress that you're making. That's going to be it. If you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up before you head out, I would greatly appreciate that. And click that subscribe button if you're new here. Have a great rest of your day.